What's going on, YouTube? Today we got a special bike in the garage. We have a 2022 Lowrider S. This thing is basically brand new. It's got a couple things done to it, but I want to go over a general review and how cool this bike is. Super special bike for the year 2022. All right, so starting with the paint, we have a special gray paint for this year. Super slick. You can get it on the Lowrider S, the Lowrider ST. Looks real slick. Gray on black. Really cool paint scheme. You can also get it in black. And it's one of the cool colors that comes this year. Even the dog likes it. As you can tell, this bike is very fresh, not a lot of miles on it. Everything's super clean. Really, really cool setup here. So really quick, let's talk about how they've changed the riding area, the cockpit of the bike for 2022. The tank changed. Previous years, they used to have gauges down here, and it was also a side fill tank. I don't remember, it might have had a ghost cap over here. This year, they took everything off the center, so it's a super clean center. You have a side fill gas tank still, and then you have a different gauge this year. So this is actually a half digital gauge. I'll show you what it looks like. So you got your tachometer analog around the outside here, engine RPM. You have your speed down here, and then you have your computer that you can switch through. So 278 miles, like I said, pretty much new bike. You got your trip computers as per usual, your range, amount of miles you have left in the tank, and then time, and then again, RPMs. Pretty slick setup. The only thing that you have to remember when you're doing a bar setup, we'll go over this again, but this gauge, where it sits on the risers, you have to get a different, when you relocate it, you have to get a different gauge housing. The top clamp on the new 2022s is actually slightly different than before. So you cannot just swap out the top clamp and still use the same gauge housing. So the biggest deal for 2022, in my opinion, is that the Lowrider S now comes with the 117 instead of the 114. It also comes with a different style air intake. I don't know exactly what this one's called, but it's a 90-degree bend into a heavy breather. In previous years, it was like a flat pancake right here. So that's new for 2022. It's got a ton of power. I've done a couple test rides because I've fit a lot of parts to this bike in the past couple weeks, doing it for a buddy. So I took it out on a test ride afterwards to make sure all the brakes and all the cabling, everything still worked. And man, it has a ton of power. This is a ripper, super, super fast bike. You can definitely tell the difference between this and a 114. Now this hasn't changed between 21 and 22, but the front suspension on the Lowrider S is actually pretty decent from the factory. It's an inverted fork. Down to the wheel, you got dual disc brakes. This is a non-ABS model. I'll get into that later. But the suspension is really, really, really good in the front for a factory Harley. And then in the rear, you actually have a 1-inch lift. It's a little bit harder to tell with the bags on it, but there is a little bit of fender gap. So this bike does sit taller than your standard Softail. Makes it handle really, really well, corners well, accelerates well, and it doesn't dive too much under braking. It's a really sweet setup from the factory. All right, now let's go ahead and take a look at what we've done to this bike. First off, I want to talk about the bars because it's a huge project for 2022 because there's a slight difference between 21 and 22 models. So these are a 10-inch rise, Big Owl riser with a pullback. Really, really sweet. You can see the machining in there. It's a really nice riser. And it's also a Big Owl's relocation for your gauge. We've got ARP hardware both on the top and as well for the studs for your risers. Makes a big difference. Super stiff, feels great. And then we have a mid-bend bar. I'm gonna forget the name or the distributor of it, but it's a mid-bend. It's got a little bit of rise to it. I'd say the total height on this setup is about 14 inches. But let's talk real quick about what you're gonna need to do this because it's different than other year models. So You're gonna have to extend essentially everything because from factory, the bars sit way down here and we literally rose it up 10 inches. So you're obviously gonna need an extended clutch cable. That's one piece. You'll need all of these electrical lines extended. So you'll need turn signals left and right, throttle by wire, your CAN bus. You'll need this wire that goes to your speedometer, and all those need to be extended quite a bit, and they go down and around nice and neat under the tank. They come in right about here and go into your frame. So quite a few parts there already. And then the big deal for 22 is that Harley was having trouble getting ABS units. They were having a shortage of ABS. So this Lowrider S is actually a non-ABS unit. I'll show you how you can tell. On this junction, your brake junction, there's only 3 lines that come off. There's one back here that goes to your master cylinder, and these 2 on the sides go down to your brake calipers, okay? Why is that important? Because all of the kits for extended handlebars online are gonna be for Lowrider S's with ABS. So what you have to do is essentially build your own brake line kit, and the parts can be on back order. So this bike was actually in my garage for about 3 weeks with no brake lines. Everything else was done, but I had to order all these parts for the brake line. Some of them are on back order. And you have to get all these fittings. So this little, I'm gonna forget the name, banjo. And then you have to get the line that goes down into your second banjo that goes into your junction. You then get to get the junction, another banjo that comes off the junction, and then your brake line down all the way down here. Another banjo fitting into the into the caliper. So when you're doing a bar job on a 22 Lowrider S, make sure you keep that in mind because you don't want to order the wrong parts, which we did, and then we had to return them. And then your bike sits off the road. So keep that in mind. It's gonna take a little while. But the end result is very worth it. This bike has a great stance to it, feels super aggressive, fits really, really well in the corners, super comfortable down the freeway. It's a really, really great setup. Next thing that has been done to this bike, and everybody's favorite, it has an exhaust system. This is a 2-in-1 by Stealth. Really, really nice product. I've done a review on their pipes already on my channel. I'll do a link in the description for what it sounds like. I'll do a quick startup video, but I've done a full in-depth review of this pipe before. That's actually why it's on this bike. I told my buddy, you know, hey, these pipes are made really, really well. They sound great. So definitely take a look. And it fits in with that kind of Dynabro or Stunt Dyna look, even though it's a Softail. Adds a little bit of power. It's a really, really great complement to these motors. Next mod here is the seat, and it's a must-have. So this is a San Diego Customs Saddlemen Seat. Super nice. It's got a gripper material back here so you don't slide around. This backrest comes up and down. It's extendable. So if you're going on a long trip, you have an extra backrest, also with gripper on the front. And then you have a small place for your passenger. And keep in mind on the Lowrider S's, they don't come with passenger pegs, but we put them on here. So we've got passenger pegs on the back of this Lowrider S. But this is a key addition to your bike. You're definitely gonna want this. The standard seat is just a 1-up, and it's pretty small, doesn't really hold you, especially with all the power this bike has. I mean, it's unbelievable how much faster this thing is than a 107 or a 114. We also added some Thrashin Supply bags. I believe these are the Escapes. Correct me if I'm wrong. But got some real nice bags on here. Kind of adds to your ability to ride this every day or ride it everywhere. You can bring stuff with you. Really, really sweet. It's a easily detached, but it really does add to the performance and overall usability of the bike. A must-have in my opinion. I love having bags on my bikes. So yeah, look great, high quality. They definitely last. These aren't actually brand new with the bike. They're takeoffs from my buddy's old bike. So you can see they've held up super well. Definitely want to add those if you can. And then lastly, just a few cosmetic things with this motorcycle. Comes with black or chrome levers from the factory. We added black. We did smoked LED lenses with LEDs in there. Makes it look super slick. All blacked out, good looking, none of that red and yellow goofy stuff on your bike. Same story with the back. So from factory, this is already smoked in LED. This backlight right here, we changed the turn signals so that they'd match. So those are also LED with smoke signals. Looks really, really, really good. This bike came out super clean. Definitely wish it was mine, but lucky enough to have it here for a video for you guys, show you all the work that's gone into it and what it looks like now. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'm gonna end the video with a little sound clip of how this pipe sounds, and hope you enjoyed. Again, this is a 2022 Lowrider S with the 117. Let's give her a listen.